And I thought, we've never really talked about happiness as a construct on the show before. And I just want to give you a little smidgen, of what we actually know from the science of happiness. And it's interesting to think about it as a science, because what happened was actually in the field of psychology about, I don't know, it's 15 years ago or so, maybe a little more now. The president of the American Psychological Association stood up at the convention one year and said, "Hey guys, um, guess what? We as psychologists have been studying misery for over 100 years, and we pretty much understand it. In other words, we know a lot about depression and anxiety and stress and you know addictions and all this, and we can, we have really really successful treatments to offer in all these areas. So good job. But we haven't done, we've never even really as a whole group gone and studied the upside of life: human happiness, human thriving. Now we know what it is. We know what it is when we know what it looks like, and we know when we see somebody's got it, or when we got it, or somebody's got it, we don't have it, and we want it, but we don't really know what drives it. What drives people to be fulfilled and happy? So let's go study that. And what happened was the field just went crazy. I mean, just really, really, and so we have so much research, and now graduate programs in all the big schools in this field of what they call positive psychology, as opposed to the negative stuff, right? I kind of think of the pie of life. That's where I always talk to you from, looking at the whole pie, both the positive and the negative. But we know some stuff about human thriving. We know some stuff. In fact, we know a lot of stuff. And I just want to share one little piece of that with you today, in anticipation of Boundaries.me launch on this course on Friday. And that is this: when they went and studied happiness, okay, here was the big, amazing finding that all of the researchers figured out early on. You know what it was? That happiness does come from a specific place, by and large. Okay. Here's what the researchers found. And I want you to remember this. This was research around the world, across cultures, across socioeconomic lines, rich or poor or in between, across married and single, across all these different, they matched and they found out, are there some things that cause happiness no matter where you fall on any of those spectrums? And here's what they found. There's a big chunk of happiness that is kind of related to what we're going to call constitutional factors. Your temperament, your genetic makeup, all of that kind of stuff, right? You go into a nursery, for example, and look at babies, and there's some that are like, bah, 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 bah. They're as happy with the world like they found it. And the one right next to them is like, those are the future attorneys, right? They're going to go sue somebody that day. But there's some the people have different temperaments, and there's a lot of things that we can do to work with even that. Doesn't mean it's not workable. But some of it is biological, genetic, and temperament. But here's what they found. Here's what they found. Only 10%, 10% of human happiness. Are you ready for this? 10% of human happiness comes from anything circumstantial. Think about that. Whether we're rich or poor, whether you have the job, got the job we wanted or didn't, whether you're married or single, whether you are, kind of got that house you wanted or got that, whatever it is. See, we think deludedly, and this is empirical evidence, we think that if I just were married, or if I wasn't married anymore, or if I had this job, or if I could live in that city, or if something external could happen or I could make happen, then I would be happy. And what they found is that is absolutely not true, because what happens is you do get a bump. Okay, you go up, you get that new car, right? Oh, I'm happy. but the new car smell goes away and you return. And this is what I want you to hear from this. You return after that initial bump, you got a new job, or you moved in the house you wanted, or you changed cities, or whatever it is. After that initial bump in feelings of happiness, you go back down. And here's the phrase I want you to learn. You go back down to what they call a set point. And the set point is kind of like how happy I am, kind of in general, apart from something not giving me a little boost and then it goes away. Am I a happy person or not? Now, I'm not talking about if clinical scenarios are present. Okay. If somebody's clinically depressed or, dealing with some clinical issue, that's a whole different arena. What I'm talking about is you're not clinically depressed. You don't have a clinical something that needs to be treated, but just normal as a human. Some people are happy and some people just aren't that happy, but they have a set point. All right. So what do we say? Genetics, big chunk, little bitty sliver about our circumstances, the big other chunk. And you know what that is? It is a collection of certain life, I'm going to call them life practices. And by practices, I mean both internal practices as well as external practices. In other words, happy people live in a different way than unhappy people live. And that is good news, folks, because you have control over that. That's something you have control over. A lot of times we don't have control over external circumstances, certainly don't have control over our constitutional makeup, even though we can do a lot of things that are going to affect that. You have control of influencing and changing, but you're born a certain way, right? But this big chunk that drives our happiness, you have control of. And if we live in these certain ways and certain principles and certain factors, and we put those into practice, and we get better and better and better and better at these, then we can actually turn into happy people. That is really, really cool. So that's my little spiel on happiness. That's why on this show we talk about internal and interpersonal and different kinds of practices and ways. And what I try to do, in doing everything I do, really, whether it's writing books or working with people or whatever, that there's an operating system. It's sort of like Windows or iOS. There's an operating system to life, and if we understand the code of the operating system, it doesn't matter what application, whether you're running a family application or a marriage or, whatever. If we understand the underlying code of the way that it works, the way that life and humans thrive, then we can make that application work.